How is everybody doing? And welcome back for another Strength Chat episode. Today I've got a very special guest for you all. Today I'm joined by the under 125 British all-time record holder. He's an online coach and some may say the world's strongest golfer. Today I'm joined by the one and only Sam Bollands. How are you doing?
I'm very good, mate. Thanks for inviting me on. Looking forward to getting stuck in and having a chat.
No worries at all. Thanks a lot for taking the time to jump on. How are you? What's been happening in your world? What have you been up to recently?
Well, it's been a crazy last, 18 months, 2 years since I've stopped competing in powerlifting. I mean, more recently now, I'm just focusing on trying to set up a few more things for the online coaching. I've just set up a website. I'm trying to expand that actually, because I'm now getting involved with the long drive scene, world's strongest golfer, as you mentioned. I've made the least likely transition ever from powerlifting into golf. And now I'm learning more so about that side of things, the training, the mobility required, the more speed, explosive stuff. And the plan is to be able to offer some of that training for would-be golfers and sports enthusiasts to expand that, because my coaching's kind of more been directly for powerlifting, strength training, but I want to expand that into other areas for other sports. So I'm learning and I'm trying to expand the coaching, and then just the normal stuff, just training and work and socializing and whatnot.
Oh, cool. And have you, because especially the stuff that you've shared with golf, I'm crap at golf. I'm rubbish, but it's always one of those things where I think I'd love to give that a go. Have you always golfed, or is that just literally something new?
Yeah, no. What it was when I was at school, the last couple of years of school, and then when I left school, I actually tried to turn professional. I got down to a handicap of 4. Basically, I think a handicap of 4 and under, you can apply to do a course through the PGA to become a professional. Now, there's different levels of professionals. That would have, under 4, you might be able to become a club professional and teach people. Right. It's not like I was anywhere near good enough to play on tour or anything like that. So just clear that up. And then I discovered cars, women, sold my golf clubs, and had a big gap, started going out and got into the gym. It's about 15, 18 years gap before I got my golf clubs again. I bought my golf clubs when I stopped powerlifting, and I had the fundamentals, the technique, whatnot from back then that was still kind of there. And then from the years of strength training, and then applying myself to get better at that, I soon started realizing that I could hit it pretty far. And some of these guys who are competing professionally or going across to these competitions, I was hitting it further than them. I was like, all right, here we go. Let's have a crack at this then, shall we?
Oh, cool. I bet that's because I know we'll get into this probably a little bit later on as well, but it must be quite refreshing doing something different. You can see there thinking, I'll give this a go, because I ended up stopping playing as much rugby, got into powerlifting, and then kind of went back to rugby a little bit, but because I enjoyed it, it was fun, it was something different. So cool.
So I think if you're that way, if you're a driven person, or you're the type of person that likes to apply yourself to something, and you find it rewarding to progress, you kind of need something. I'm trying not to let it take over too much, because I'm all about balance these days. But it is good for me. It's good. I think it's good for most people to have something that they can put their efforts into and get the rewards when they start to progress from it.
Yeah, definitely. I think the key thing that you said there is balance, because there's stress going on with other things, and everyone's got something going on. To have something that they can just switch off and go off and do and enjoy, I think is important. Obviously, you touched on about having stopping powerlifting, and probably a lot of people have heard of you from your powerlifting exploits. But for anyone listening who might not know your background, how you got involved in training and powerlifting, just want to give a little bit of a background to yourself?
Yeah, I'll try and I'll summarize the 15 years of training as best as I can. So the reason why I actually joined the gym was, and I think if most men are being honest, it was to look better for women. That's why I went. I wanted to look better. I wanted to go out at weekend and, get a nice girl. So I started going to the gym for, self-confidence, let's call it that. And I started getting into it, and without getting too deep, but I was a little bit insecure as a younger lad, so I got really focused in on it, and got a little. I pushed myself a little bit more than most people, and got in shape for a few lads' holidays. Ended up doing a bodybuilding competition. Thought that this was probably 8 years of training, 10 years of training, and then I saw a powerlifting gym online posting up some of the lifts that the members were doing, and it kind of blew my mind, to be fair. And one of my mates trained there. It's called Iron Athlete Gym in Sheffield. And I went down to check it out. And I've always generally been quite strong. And up to that point, when I was training in commercial gyms, just wanting to get shape, I was probably one of the strongest guys in there. But you only needed to bench 120, 140 kilos for people's minds to be blown in a commercial gym. And I was soon humbled when I went to this powerlifting gym. There was guys in there benching 220, deadlifting 300 kilos. But anyway, I was still fairly strong for my weight. And after I did a couple of bodybuilding competitions, they just weren't for me. I just didn't enjoy that process. I had to go up powerlifting, and soon discovered that, actually I'm pretty strong. I used to work at a garage, a mechanic. I was a mechanic years ago, and I was like a rake before I started training.
Oh.
What was that? Did you get that then? Was that me or you?
Oh. It must have been. So I started watching Stranger Things last night. So anything that's now, I'm like, whoa.
An egg. That wet, mushy guy to come out and start sliding around. What was the last thing you heard me say?
That you used to work as mechanic.
As a mechanic, yeah. And I was like a rake before I went to the gym, and they says, "Get Garth out." They used to call me Garth because they said I had monk strength. When Garth had run out of batteries, I'd come and push him, even though I was like the skinniest there. But anyway, I really got into that. I excelled. I've always been a competitive person, and like anything, if you're good at it, you tend to enjoy it more. And after maybe a year, 18 months of strength training, I entered my first powerlifting competition. My first powerlifting I can't remember the dates. I competed in powerlifting for about 3 or 4 years, and it was about 5 years-ish of strength training. My first competition, my best lift, I think, was a 305 kilo squat, a 200 kilo bench, and a 340 kilo deadlift. And that was 845 kilos. And then I eventually went out, did a few more competitions, won the Brits, and then got an invite to Pro Raw over in Australia. I finished second in that competition, and then I came back over. Last time I competed was at the Irish Pro, and I totaled 1,000 kilos, squatting 400 kilos, benching 227.5 kilos. And deadlifting 372.5 kilos. But I only managed to get my first deadlift because I tore my hamstring on my second attempt, which would have been for the highest at the time, the highest total any Brit had done, regardless of weight class. And then unfortunately, because of COVID, I never got to compete again. I did do a mock meet because I actually flew out to Australia when COVID kicked in. It's 5 days before I was supposed to be competing at Pro Raw that they cancelled the competition. So I decided to just test my maxes anyway under competition scenario, 2 hour weigh-in, going, giving myself not very long to warm up for the next, did all 3 lifts on the same day. And what was it, 1,015, I think I totaled there, 410 squat, 225 bench, and a 380 kilo deadlift. But unofficial, that's not what I've got down in on paper. Yeah. But I like to get it in there because I'm like, I always struggle on that.
Oh, cool.
You'll always feel like that, I think. No matter when you walk away, you'll always feel like you could have done more. So.
Yeah. And especially when you've said there about training beforehand and then getting involved in powerlifting, it's a little the more I've got involved in powerlifting, you hear about other lifters and you kind of become part of that community and see people from other gyms and competitions and those sorts of things, especially with like the numbers that you've put up and the records that you have. Who were kind of, when you got involved in powerlifting, who were kind of your influences? And because you look at a lifter of what you've done, oh well, who does he look at? Who does he think, oh yeah, actually I learned a lot from that, from other lifters maybe getting involved in powerlifting?
Well, so where I'd say I'm one of the, in fact, the first person I actually idolized, I would say, is probably Delroy McQueen.
Right.
Because I remember thinking, I'm the dog's bollocks, me. Thinking after I'd deadlifted 300 kilos, yet to learn what true strength was. I think, I thought I've got to be one of the best in Britain. I've done 7 plates for a deadlift, no one else is near me. And then I saw Delroy McQueen deadlifting 800 pounds. I was like, who's this geezer? So I really admired Del, not just because of his strength, but the way he conducted himself as well. He's always been a humble lifter, a technically good lifter, without getting too political. Like some totals are better than others because of the standards of how they were judged, and that's all I'll say. So Delroy was the person that I maybe looked up to, and when I surpassed his total, that really meant a lot to me. Not because I dislike him or anything, but because it was like, wow. I remember thinking, Delroy McQueen's got unattainable strength. But who I actually learned from was an accumulation from a lot of people. So there was some very knowledgeable guys down at Iron Athlete Gym, that first gym in Sheffield that I joined, that I used to pick the brains of. And there was Martin, I can't remember his surname. He won't listen to this, he's never on. But he used to train with who was that? Martin Reeves, strongman from Sheffield. So he knew a lot. I'd always go to him, ask him his advice. Andy Bolton, Jim Nuttall, used to speak to them. And to be honest, it was a lot of trial and error figuring it out myself in the beginning. And then eventually, when I got a coach, it was Australian strength coach Sebastian Oreb, or as I'll refer to him from now on, Baz, because everyone calls him Baz. So Baz, really, I'd learned a lot up to the point I was coached by him from different lifters and trial and error, and I thought what I was doing was working because I think I totaled 940 or 950 before him. But it was when I started working with him, it opened my eyes to everything else, like the reasons why we're doing what we're doing, just understanding so much more and including a lot more. I was doing a lot of good stuff already, but it was the best decision I ever made working with Baz, because I kind of consider he was a mate, he was a coach, and he was a mentor. I used to ask him a lot of questions, went to a few of his seminars, and the knowledge that I gained from that, not only did it help me in my lifting, but now in my coaching, it helps me in that, and it's really rewarding to help it. Since I've started coaching, I've helped 2 other lifters take all-time records. Tom Smith got the deadlift record in my weight class. He got an official 380 kilos. And then Nick Whitecross got the all-time Scottish record in bench press. So it's good, you know, like it's really good to that was such a good investment, and I would say he's the person who I learned the most from. But it was a lot of different lifters and trial and error. But the depth of knowledge I got from Baz was just, it kind of opened my eyes to how far behind we are maybe in this country. Sometimes I'm not targeting everybody with a same brush, but there's a lot of mistakes I see, particularly at the higher end, believe it or not, that stops people getting further on than what they could do, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think what you've said there, especially, you know, speaking to, you know, other guys in the gym, or what a lot of people are probably doing okay at, you know, maybe doing their own programming, training, and using things in the gym. Whereas it's daft saying, but you don't know what you don't know. So until someone says, actually give this a go, what was there? Because especially we working someone as a coach, such as I always feel a bit cheeky calling him Baz. I feel like I need to say his full name. What's the like sort of biggest lessons or changes that happened when you started working with Baz in terms of coaching? Because you got to a pretty good standard. How do you then, do you know what I mean, get more?
I would say that probably the biggest changes was understanding less is more when you get to a certain level of strength, and putting trust in that. The technique, perfecting technique and understanding how critical and important that is, and just tweaking and understand. It's got a really good way of putting information across, Baz, with the cues and, you know, how he explains things. He's got a really a gift for teaching and getting people to understand. So it was lifting technique, but it was also the importance of the accessory work, or the accessory work as people call it. But basically, not so much. I think accessory work is viewed as, I think more so in this country, I don't know, well, that's where you experience it, as kind of other strengthening exercises, like something for my lockout, something for my starting position on deadlift, or my sticking point. And that's not how I approach accessory work 90% of the time. It's more for being structurally balanced. And that again is huge. So it's those three components, incorporating the right accessory movements, perfecting the technique, or getting as close to perfect as you can, and actually like understanding what's the right intensity and training volume. And you know, actually another one, the work that you do outside of the gym. So from asking him, you know, he's worked with, you know, Thor Bjornsson. I'm asking him what can I do, and he always goes, well, Thor does this, Thor does this, Thor does this, or I found that I do this. And it was putting extra effort into the other hours, you know, the 22 other hours outside of the gym, making sure I got 8 hours sleep. I was always making sure I was hydrated. You know, it was obsessive really with meals, hydration, sleep, trying to keep low stress levels, making sure that I was as close to 100% as I could be for every training session. If I was driving for a long day, sometimes I'd have days where I'd do 6 hours driving the day before. I'd take that into consideration for the deadlift session. Should I put that back a day? So it was a collection of everything to feel like I ticked as many boxes as I could to bring the best out of me. And there's no real one thing. It's an accumulation of all sorts of different things. If you really want to excel and be good at something, like world class, you need to be covering as many things as you can, but over a long period of time. Now that's the side of it doesn't sound very sexy, does it? When you're trying to sell something, you go, you're gonna have to do this for 2 years solid if you want to get to where you want to get to. And then if you want to get even further, it's going to take even longer, and you have to be even more consistent. But that's basically, you know, what it takes. And that was just the knowledge, and then my own drive that I feel got me to where I was.
Do you think, because it's that thing of got to a pretty good total, do you think if you hadn't got that extra knowledge, learning about the other things, because you hit the nail on the head there of you've got to keep doing it, you've got to be consistent with it, and it's going to take time, which I think some people think, oh, I'm just going to do a 12-week program and I want to get really strong, but then you got to do another 12-week program, then you got another, and keep doing it. Do you think you would have got, you know, the total that you got by getting there yourself, or do you think like you needed that knowledge of, you know, the accessory exercises, technique, you know, recovery, all those other things, to, because I think everything has a knock-on effect on everything, you know, like what you said, driving for 6 hours, that might have a knock-on effect on your sleep or your stress, and then that might affect your training session. Do you think it would have ended that way?
My ego is screaming, you would have done it anyway, regardless. You would have done it. But no, I'd say probably not, because what would have happened, I don't know. It was hard to say what would have happened. But all of those things, they add a little bit, you know. Maybe if I'd not had all the accessories to make sure I was structurally balanced, I might have got injured more often. And that would have prevented my progression. I might have burnt out, you know. I might not have actually been able to figure out what's the right amount of training volume. And then when you've not, the other thing that's massive as well when you've got a coach is it takes the emotion out of the numbers. You know, you get attached to these numbers that you think you need to hit. And, you know, you want to hit, if you're doing a phase of like five reps, maybe doing a 4-week phase of 5 reps, in your head is like, right, my 5-rep max on that is this. So I want to hit this at the end of that phase. And that's not always the best way to approach your training. You've got a coach who's like, I don't give a shit what you got. Your 5-rep maxes. I'm going to give you what you need to get strong. And we're going to stay in these parameters that you need to stay within for you to be able to excel without being at risk of injury.
Yeah.
And that's something that's plays a part too. Because we've all got an ego, and it's hard to, no matter as much as we think, you know, we might know this, it's easy for that voice to get the better of us and make decisions more on what, you know, what we want to do rather than what we probably should do.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, you know, that question is kind of like you're predicting the future or thinking, you know, what could have happened. But one thing that you touched on, obviously, having Baz as a mentor as well, because I think I've seen it at competitions where people go in and their openers are like, they're just like grinding it on the squat, and it's kind of like, I wonder what would happen if they had someone there. I always think of it like a manager on sidelines, just like for rugby or football, just looking and being like, right, actually, I think this will be a good thing. And especially in strength sports, I think sometimes, especially maybe people just getting involved in strength sports or powerlifting, they want to put that ego on, whereas actually, you know, you can build up to it and build the total and go from there.
Yeah, it's experience, a lot of that. I mean, and ego. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one because you do see it quite often. You go to a powerlifting competition, you see someone in the warm-up room, and you're thinking, that's like, what, B9, what's going on now? Like, why are you doing that? And then he comes out, bails his opener, and you never know whether that's just lack of experience, whether it's ego, or the other component is when you get blow smokery, that's what I call it, online. You know, not a lot of people want to be that guy who goes, mate, that looks a little bit heavy there, you might want to back off. Cutting depth on that squat, maybe perhaps, or they're just like, nice one, bro, have a fire emoji, like, gonna kill it, bro. And it's like, that's probably, like, I think that can play a part too. And you get a reality check when you go into competition. So, you know, again, having that coach, I am that coach who, like, if they're not hitting depth on their squats, I'm like, sorry, mate, you're doing that again next week. You're not going up heavy. We're not. You need to nail this before we build up, because that's just the way I am. I'd rather do that and send them into competition prepared than indulge their ego. And that's that. I think that's a coach's job, to be fair. Tell them what they need to do, not what they want to hear.
Definitely, I think what you've said there, it's send them into a competition prepared. I think, and as well, when we're talking about depth and all these other things, it's just being honest. Because if not, you're thinking you're going to be really strong, and then you can be kind of humbled a little bit when you go to a competition. When you were talking there about knowledge and seeing other things going on, what sprung to mind was there was a competition, it must have been last year, and I took a guy, and he was we were warming up, and it was getting to deadlifts, and it was getting to the final deadlifts, and everyone was getting hepped up in warm-up room, and I just turned to my right, and it was the coach who was doing this to his lifter, who was putting chalk on his legs. And do you know when you just kind of turn and look?
Chalk, not baby powder, chalk.
Yeah. And you just think, and there was another coach that I know. I think he trains in gym in Huddersfield actually. And I looked, and we kind of like locked eyes, and was like, "That's chalk that he's putting on." So we just had to say, "Look, well, actually, the coach didn't know, and he was just like, oh, I was thinking more about grip." I was like, you don't want out grip into your leg when you're doing a deadlift, but then that's a case of, it's not trying to, even though it's funny now, say it's that thing of at the time, it's like, no mate, don't be doing that, because I do generally think about like what you mentioned about Baz trying to pass knowledge on, like doing the seminars, you jumping on this podcast as well, sharing things in terms of this is going to be the best, because ultimately everyone wants to get stronger. There's no magic formula. It's just a case of this is what we want to be working on. One thing that you said, all those things outside of the gym, trying to build that total and sort of dedicating to it, from having a time when you dedicated a lot to powerlifting, and now, like it started podcast saying, you've a bit more balance now. What was sort of the biggest challenges, not so much the training side of things, but in terms of lifestyle as well, compared to how it is now, seeing as though you've had sort of both ends of the spectrum, if you like?
That's a good question, that, because it's tough. It's hard, it's hard when you've gone from putting so much time and effort and almost placed an identity on something that I excelled at, to remove yourself and then have that hole and fill it enough to be content. I'm still figuring it out to a degree, because one of the reasons why I stopped powerlifting, there was a few. I wasn't really happy doing it, but it was starting to create relationship issues, but more so in the fact that she's my ex now. She was worried that I wasn't ever going to stop powerlifting. I did have a time frame on it, and I came to the conclusion that I wasn't enjoying it. But then when I stopped, still figuring a lot out about yourself and understanding what was that drive that I had, because it's not the kind of dedication that I had to it. It wasn't a normal amount, hence the reason why I excelled so much. So getting a bit deep, it was I've had to kind of ask questions. Why did that mean so much to me? What was it that drove me to want to excel so much in powerlifting? And then I'm still tampering with the right balance at the moment. I go to the gym quite frequently. I keep myself busy, and because I'm single at the moment as well, I have a lot of time. So the way that I'm living, I go to the gym almost twice a day. Well, Monday to Friday, I'm in the gym twice. I go in the morning. I went this morning, did some cardio, did some stretching, and then I'll either be at the driving range or the gym tonight. It doesn't sound very balanced at the moment, but I live on my own. I'm single, and a lot of my mates are chapped up with missuses. So I don't have much. I enjoy doing it, but the difference is now, it's just a bit more of a relaxed approach. I do it because I enjoy it. If I find that it's stressing me out, I don't feel like, hold on, you don't need to do this. There's no pressure. And I don't know. That's a tough one to answer because I've not got the answer myself completely at the moment. But I just, it is a lot different. The way I go about things now, I'm not regimented. I don't, before it was like Monday's like pressing day, Tuesday's squats, Thursday's another secondary pressing day, Saturday that's deadlifts, and then I have a recovery day, Sunday I've got a sports massage, and Wednesday, I can't go on holiday if it's like before it's a competition, or that's what's different now. It's if I want to go on holiday in a couple of weeks, I'll just book it. And I think, well, so what? If I'm meant to be getting better for a long drive competition, I don't want that lifestyle anymore.
I know, obviously. Yeah, when you said there not have an answer, I know it's that thing of with any transition of it, and especially from when you see the total that you put up, and it's like, oh wow, right. So what total is going to do again? But I find it resonated with that kind of way from powerlifting, like I said, when I did rugby, went and did other things, and I try and ask questions that are on topic from the clients that I work with, and I think especially during COVID, when because I think powerlifting is one of them sports where I'm a powerlifter. It's a little bit like CrossFit. I'm a CrossFitter.
Put in your bio.
Yeah, definitely. And when COVID hit, I know obviously things are relatively back to normal now. Like I didn't have a squat rack at home. I had 2 kettlebells and a strongman log, and it's like, oh, what do I do now? A lot of other people that I coach didn't have equipment at home. So what do? And it's kind of like you look up from posting your PB on Instagram and be like, oh, I'm going to do other things and put your efforts into different areas. And I think some people in some shape or form struggle with that, to find that, look, powerlifting and strength training is always going to be there, but it's just that thing of what else can you do, and have that balance and enjoy it, because you can dip in and out of it.
It's such an individual thing, because for me, and I think it's important to kind of have these conversations. For me, it was more down to being insecure and having a really strong drive to kind of prove myself. And that kind of stemmed from just when I was young. I lost my dad at a young age, and for my own reasons, that's just the way I turned out as a person. And it got to an unhealthy degree. But more recently, I still understand. I kind of get the reasons why I have that motivation, but I just have to manage it. But somebody, that because we're all fucked up in our own ways. Like we've all had trauma to a degree while we're younger, to varying amounts, and it affects the person you develop into. So what's been incredibly healthy for me these last 10, 11 months is to be able to understand who I am, why I am the way I am, and then kind of think what's the best way to live my life with the way that I am. But these are the things that I do because that's the way I am. For you, it might be completely different. You might have people have a completely healthy relationship with powerlifting because they haven't dealt with that, and it could be really boosting their self-esteem and doing a lot of beneficial things. But equally, there could be a lot of people out there that are suffering with similar things that it might do them some good to question what drives them. And it all comes under that umbrella of the mental health discussion and feeling comfortable saying, I'm insecure. I don't feel happy. I'm not. There's that going on, and that's something again I've realised in recent history that is more prevalent than you realise. Until you go through something, you don't realise how important it is to talk about stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely, because it is that thing of, you know, when we speak there, again, it might be a bit of a tangent in terms of because, you know, we spoke about having a coach, technique, programming, how you do things like that. But one thing that you said there is at one point you didn't want to do powerlifting. It becomes then all too, you know, consuming, and then it's, you know, having to think about other things. When you said there actually about I watched Greg Davies do stand up, and he said like we're all mental at one point, and he did like a load of phrases, and that's true, because I had a consult with a woman, and we were like, right, so what's your goals? What is it that you want to do? And she kept saying this phrase like, oh, I want to be in. It says, oh, I want to be in my own action movie, and she kept like referring to Die Hard, and I was like, all right. So I said, do you just want to be the female John McClane? And she went, yeah. And then her eyes lit up, and it's that thing of everyone's got their own like little bit of madness or anything like that. And I think it's good to do, you know, the other things like, you know, oh, I can hit a golf ball pretty fast. Right, well, I'm gonna give this a go and have that balance a little bit more. One question on that: do you think that because you said about, you know, to be world class, do you think that you need to have that level of I don't know whether obsession is the right word, but that sort of that focus?
Yeah, I mean, it's levels. It's levels. It depends. If you really want to get, you know, that there's, if you want to become one of the world's best at something, yeah, you've got to be obsessed with it. You don't, you know, there's a reason there's not loads of people walking around that have totaled 1,000 kilos, or, you know, or squatted 410 kilos, or whatever it is. Not, I don't want to make references to myself, but whoever the top echelon of people are, they eat, sleep, breathe it, and that's when you take anything to an extreme, it can get to the stage where it might not be good for you. You know, going for a jog, that's, you know, that's healthy. You know, as long as you don't do too much. I mean, shin splints can creep in, but, you know, well, then you ultra marathons. People do them, and they like, you know, they take anything to the extreme, and that's kind of what powerlifting is when you start pushing the limits. I mean, body weight is usually a you know, a popular one that people can get a little bit carried away with and not actually think, you know, because I've lost 20 kilos since
Right.
when I was powerlifting. I was a lot bigger than what I was. I was wearing a CPAP machine to sleep, even though I was walking around 125 kilos, and for a powerlifter, I was fairly lean, but it takes a toll. It takes a toll on your body. And again, people, if you get obsessed with it and you take it to the extreme, you know, there's lots of people at 150, 160, 170, 180 kilos, and they're just, all they care about is getting stronger. There was a powerlifter, a fairly well-known powerlifter in the UK who passed away during COVID. Chap from Liverpool, and he was, I don't know whether this is disrespectful or not, but I felt so bad. I felt really sad. I didn't really know him that well, but when I saw the news that he passed away, I was so sad for his family. And a big part, it was at the same time as when I'd stopped powerlifting, or soon after that. I couldn't help but think that if he wasn't so obsessed with being this, you know, big, strong powerlifter, used to post meals that he'd eat that were, you know, incredibly unhealthy, saying he was carving up. And he passed away, you know, health. I think he had breathing problems from COVID, and obviously I don't think that, like, there's not many people that happens to who are, you know, are healthy. Yeah. But that's, you know, taking it to the extreme perhaps. But that is how it can make people. Nobody get to that stage where people, all they care about is getting stronger, and they'll make sacrifices everywhere, including their health, to do that. And that's when I think, you know, maybe you need to take a step back and review.
Yeah, I know I know that it's kind of like extreme examples, but you do hear of especially the health issues. Have you ever watched West Side versus the World? West Side versus the World. And there's a bit in there, and if anyone hasn't watched it, I'd recommend watching it, because it is a good film, but also it gives you an insight into. There's a bit where he's sat talking. Well, you know, sadly Louis Simmons has obviously passed away now, but he sat talking to one of the lifters, saying, "I think you should go up a weight class." And there's a bit, and he just goes, "I don't think I can eat anymore." Like, it's at that risk of what's that balance between sort of health and an extra few kilos on the bar, which I think on maybe people just getting into a powerlifter or anything like that, it's not kind of like scaremongering and being like, you have to get as heavy as you can. It's just that thing of, look, powerlifting is good, and there's all the benefits of the community and everything else surrounding that. However, it's that thing of that you can do it and have that balance. When you said about especially now, in terms of, you know, having lost 20 kilos, in terms of probably the movement that you can access now, because obviously squat and deadlift just straight up and down, to then go into golf. Have you found that you've accessed movements that you maybe haven't accessed when you've been doing powerlifting? And in terms of sort of like maybe the injuries or niggles or anything like that, is that quite a big change?
It is. I've noticed quite a significant difference. I can put my socks on very easily these days. I haven't quite mastered self-fellatio yet, but I'm still trying. No, but I mean, it's a massive difference. From losing 20 kilos, I do yoga, I'm stretching twice a day. I'd say I'm relatively mobile for a guy of my size now. And so this is a little bit contrary to what I'd said before, but before I wouldn't do really any stretching when I was powerlifting. I would do mobility and activation work before I trained, because, like you mentioned, the level of mobility required for powerlifting is fairly low. And I personally didn't believe, and I still believe, that I don't think stretching adds anything to powerlifting, your capability of squat, bench, and deadlift, unless you cannot achieve, you know, depth on squats. In terms, if you just want to be a squat, bench, deadlift machine, which is all I was concerned about, you don't need to stretch, but it feels damn good. It's nice having a stretch, but it feels, you know, day-to-day life, you know, putting your belt on. Just honestly, it's something like I would before, when I was a lot bigger, turn around, I'm like having to really try to grab the belt and like pull my arm, or just wash my back and you know, putting the phone to my ear. I'd have to use my other hand, because it would be so much effort to bring my hand that close to my head. So I would recommend the stretching just for the sake of feeling more functional in life, and just everything not being an effort. You know, if you're on the floor, getting back up, it's not a two-man job.
Yeah, I wanted to ask that, because it is that thing of I agree with it, with the stretching side of things. I think you need to be mobile, and it's adding in things that are specific for the purpose of what you want to be. So if we're being a squat, bench, deadlift machine, right, this is the focus that you want to be on. Whereas I want to ask that because, especially sometimes, it's that standing joke of with powerlifters of, oh right, I can't do this, I can't move to do this. Whereas actually it just goes to show that you know, even though that you're still training, that's still just adding these things in. It is possible. It's not just a case of once you're tagged as a powerlifter, it's like, right, that's it, all those movements are being taken away from you now. quite a lot of topics chatted about there, and a few tangents thrown in as well. The last question that I like to ask, though, is that from everything that we've chatted about there, for everyone listening, what would be your take-home points or words of wisdom?
That's a tough one, because
Just going to drop it with that bombshell.
Yeah, just because there's been a wide variety, from mental health to self-fellatio.
We've got it all. We've got it all.
I suppose this is more specifically for powerlifting. So I'll probably split it into two. If you want to progress and achieve, your goals and ambitions in the gym, it's a combination of knowledge, patience, and consistency. So always remember that. But on the mental health side of things, just take a moment to truly question what it is that motivates you, that makes this mean so much to you. You might have a healthy level of dedication to it, you might not, but it's worthwhile just asking that question and giving yourself an honest answer, because you might find what you're searching for is not going to give you what you need. And that's probably, I'll leave that as vague as that, but that's probably the best two pieces of advice I could give to everybody.
I think they're two really good words of wisdom to finish on. For myself, I know, especially sort of the back end of last year, thinking about, right, actually, do I want to take a little bit of time away from powerlifting or anything like that? I think, it's important to, because ultimately, like you said at the start, right, I want to start going to the gym so I can look better, I can increase confidence, but also people start going to the gym because you enjoy it. You go with your mates or you see mates there or anything like that. And I think sometimes with everything out there saying you've got to do this, this is what you've got to do. If you don't hit this, you can't do this. Whereas actually, all those things are going. It's like rugby. Rugby's always been there. All right, I'm a bit rusty. I wasn't ever the best passer in the world, but it's that thing of, it's always going to be there. You can always dip back into it, and I think sometimes there's other things to look at. Thanks a lot, Sam, for taking the time to jump on. Really enjoyed chatting with you today. If anyone has any questions about what we've chatted about, want to get involved in coaching with you, or reach out and see the content that you put out there, where can people find you or reach out to you?
Well, I've just set up a new Facebook page. Actually, that's a new one. So SB Performance on Facebook. I've also just changed my Instagram name on. I've just changed it to business only, coaching only. Just looking at the phone, checking. SB Performance Coaching on Instagram, and my website's on there as well. If you want to click, send an inquiry or send me a DM, ask any questions. My inbox is open, not just with like training, but if I've touched on something which you feel like struck a chord, the mental health side of things, I don't mind talking about that either, because it's been an interesting transition coming away from powerlifting, and I've had a few messages about that. So for both sides of things, I'm here to have a chat.
Yeah, awesome. And I think as well, I think that's important, because probably, especially, thanks for sharing everything that you've spoken about there. I think on some level, I think some people will resonate with it, because I think no pun intended, I think the powerlifting community is quite strong in terms of actually people are willing to help. So 100% check out Sam's content, but also from the chat today, I think it's been really useful. So thanks a lot for taking the time to jump on. Thanks a lot to everyone listening, and I will see you all next week.
Cheers for having me.